Hi friends, welcome back. So in this video, I'll be discussing some of the very important questions related to block box testing. So what are the different block box testing techniques we can see in the software testing field? The first one is equivalence partitioning, and the second one is boundary value analysis. Third one is decision table testing, state transition testing, use case testing, and exploratory testing, and error guessing testing. These are the different testing technique which we normally use during block box testing that I'm going to discuss for the next. The one is what is all about equivalence partitioning, which is a block box testing technique. Basically, here we are going to partition the input domain of a program into classes of data from which test cases can be derived. Here we are going to partition the entire set of data into multiple groups here. If you take an example, suppose you wanted to test a login screen that accepts user names between 5 characters to 10 characters. Similarly, password between 8 characters to 12 characters. That is a requirements. Now, how will we adopt this equivalence partitioning? Here we are going to divide the username and password into a different set of categories. The valid name here is 5 to 10 characters. Now, invalid username would be a character less than 5 characters and characters which are more than 10 characters. Username more than 10 characters and username less than 5 characters. That is a invalid username. Now, here in order to test that, so we will be using one of the username with 5 to 10 characters and another one we are going to use less than 5 characters and more than 10 characters. Now, if you only just execute these three test cases, we can easily find the issues. One is within the range, one is less than the range, one is more than the range. Similarly, we can adopt the equivalence partitioning in password length as well, which is normally 8 to 12 characters. Similarly, we can have invalid password length which is less than 8 characters and password which is more than 12 characters. If we group in this way, we can minimize or we can optimize the overall test cases we wanted to create using block box testing. And the next one would be describe boundary value analysis. The boundary value analysis we normally focuses on the boundaries between the equivalence partitioning. The boundary value analysis here we are more concentrating on the values while we are doing testing which are at the boundary. That's where we get the issues when we execute the test cases by putting a value of boundaries. So now if you see in the login screen which we discussed earlier, where the boundary would be 4 and 5 and 10 and 11. These are the boundaries which are less than 5 characters and more than 5 characters and within the range 5 to 10 characters for username. Similarly, the password length, the less than 8 characters and more than 8 characters and within the range. Now, if we adopt these boundary cases, definitely we can catch more issues. That is where the boundary value analysis technique would be used. And the next one would be, when would you use equivalence partitioning over boundary value analysis? These are two different techniques. We wanted to understand when we will be using it. The equivalence partitioning is useful when you have large range of possible inputs. When we have large range of possible inputs, if we adopt equivalence partitioning, we can partition the data into multiple groups and we can pick one or two data from that group that would be more than sufficient for our testing. Similarly, while boundary value analysis, we normally useful when we wanted to focus on the edge cases and the boundary conditions. That is where the boundary value analysis technique will be used. And the next one would be, what are the limitations of boundary value analysis? Is there any limitations of boundary value analysis? The limitations of boundary value analysis might miss certain defects that are lies within the valid ranges, and it can time consuming as well because we wanted to identify all different boundary conditions to test. That is the limitations of boundary value analysis. Next technique would be, what is decision table testing technique? Normally, decision table testing technique is used when the system behavior behaves with the different combinations of inputs or system states. The test cases which we are going to derive from the table list of possible combinations and conditions and actions. If you take an example where discounts based on the user age and membership level, so this is how the decision table is going to work. If you have an age group like this, the age which is less than 18 with a silver membership, we should provide 5% discount. And similarly, we have less than 18 age and gold membership, we have to give 10% discount. Greater than or equal to 18 years with the silver is 3% and gold with the 8%. These are the discount normally the application should calculate, and we have to adapt using this decision table techniques. We have to write our test cases as well with the expected results which we discuss as here. So that is where if you have any requirements in this format and you wanted to write test cases, then definitely you can use this decision table testing technique. And the next one would be explain the state transition testing. Normally the state transition testing is normally used when the application goes in a different states and their behavior changes when transition from one state to another. If we take an example of a switch, a light switch, where there are two things happens. One is what happens when the switch is on and what happens when switch is off. When switch is off, the light is going to switch off, and when switch on, the light is going to glow. That is where the state transition testing we can apply. What happens when switch is on, what happens when it is off. Now we should use similar kind of application, this state transition application. Wherever there is a states are moving from one state to another, like a workflows. What happens if we move from one state to another state? Then that time we should apply this state transition testing techniques. And the next one is, what is use case testing? The use case testing is based on the user interaction. The test cases are derived from the use cases and representing user scenarios. That is where the use case testing technique is coming to picture. If you have use cases and you have end user scenarios, then we can easily apply this use case testing technique. If you take an example of e-commerce application, the use case might look like this. User makes a purchase. The test cases would cover steps involved in scenarios like adding item to the cart, entering payment details, confirming the order. These are some of the different scenarios you can cover up for this use case scenario. And what is all about exploratory testing? Exploratory testing involves the simultaneous learning, test design and test executions. Without knowing much information of requirements, we just explore the application, then we learn, then we write the test cases, then we execute the test cases. That's all about exploratory testing. The tester explore the application without predefined test cases, allowing them to find defects and learn about the system behavior based on that. Then we'll be writing the test case and executions. This is how the example. If we take an example of website where the tester is going to navigate to the entire website and trying to provide various input randomly and clicking on the links randomly and observing the system's response based on that, and based on that they will be writing test cases. Then we can keep executing the same behavior across different browsers or devices. What are the challenges of exploratory testing? The challenges we normally face in exploratory testing with a limited documentation. We have to explore the testing will be adopted, and with that we may have limited test cases as well, because we cannot go and write all the test cases which we follow in exploratory testing. And for performing exploratory testing, we would be required experienced testers as well, and again, replicating the bugs which we found during exploration is also difficult, because we do not have a detailed test cases. Then it becomes very challenging when we want to reproduce that issue. And what is error guessing? This is another technique. The error guessing is an informal testing technique, which is not like a formal, which is a more of an informal testing technique where testers would be using their intuition and the experiences to anticipate where defects might exist in the system. It is more of a guessing wise. The test cases we write is based on the intuition. If we take an example, if a form validation fails due to invalid input, tester might guess that similar validation can be occurs in a different part of the application. That's how our experiences counts, our intuition counts, and somewhere if we find issues, we may anticipate similar kind of issues may find in different parts of the application as well with a similar functionality. That is when the error guessing techniques will be used in our testing. And the next one would be, how do you prioritize test cases in error guessing? The test cases are prioritized based on probability of defects in a certain areas of the system, and testers will be more focusing on the area where we can find more defects on a particular area.